When it comes to getting the best local gardening advice, there are several ways to do it. And believe me, Facebook or the World Wide Web is not the way to go. If it's a simple question, then West Australians rely on Talkback Radio more than any other place in Australia. We need local expert advice because our conditions are so unique. And that makes the contribution our Talkback Gardening radio show hosts make invaluable. Mathew Lunn has been hosting Curtin FM 100.1 Radio's Let's Talk Gardening with co-host Ray Burton since inception, and he's been helping West Aussies solve typical garden problems live on air for over 14 years. Matt, why is radio such a good medium to help people with their gardens?
Well, it's live. It's happening now. I mean, that's the great thing. And for the gardening show over the last 14 years, for me, it's those different gardens from the coast right up to the hills.
I'd imagine there's a huge amount of pressure on you to get it right every time.
It's impossible to know it all. So having people like John behind the scenes and up to date with information as well, that's the most important thing, because people want up to date information. What's the latest organic product to use? So, yeah.
Now, there are some really curly questions that come through each week. What's the strangest question you've ever had?
Probably the greatest one was someone phoned us and I could hear trickling water. And the actual caller was in the shower, had waited so long to speak to us on air because we have so many calls during the day. But it was a call about their garden, but they'd waited so long they're actually standing in the shower.
How does the local environment here compare to the origins of your career, which has been a totally different environment?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, I remember when I first came in '94, Joondalup was just being built, and I could see roses growing in sand, where I was used to them growing in heavy soils. So it was a huge difference, but I was very, very fortunate. When I was working for the Royal Horticultural Society in England, I actually worked in the Temperate House at the RHS at Wisley, and some of the plants were all Australian. So I'd actually seen a lot of the plants, the acacias, the grass trees, the callistemons, already grown, so I had a bit of a feel for them. And at the Chelsea Flower Show, the Australian garden in that particular year, 92, 93, the Australian gardens were really making a big impact. So I knew a lot about the plants, but the biggest thing I found when I came here, of course, was the heat, that dry heat, and the different zones of planting from the coast, as I said earlier, right up to the hills. There's a different way of gardening in those sort of different locations.
So if you've got a specific gardening question that you want to ask advice for, Talkback Gardening Radio is a brilliant way to go. Now, if you want to contact Ray and Matt, it's as simple as calling 9484 1927, or you can email them. It's gardening@curtinfm.com.au. It's a great way to get specific gardening advice about our unique West Australian gardening conditions.